Hello, my Asian friends living in Asia or else any other part of the world because of your limiting XYZ reasons. I am your Asian friend living, residing, and thriving in South Asia. My dear Asian friend, as I already mentioned, promised, and discussed, this one particular age old ancient practice being practiced within our continent Asia in my previous video. If you want, you can check that out first. And that particular practice is one thing which actually can bring us closer to each other as Asians, because we all do it, we don't even care to know that we almost all of us do it. And that practice is known as ancestor worship. And as I already promised in my previous video, that from the lens of ancestor worship, we will one by one start exploring our Asian countries from unknown in the media or social media to well known. And the first country which we will start discussing from this context would be our East Asian country, Japan. I'm damn sure, my Asian friend, the first thought which would have come into your mind after listening to all this would be, dear Asian friend, are you crazy? Japan is so well known in the world. Why you are saying that it is unknown? Yeah, my Asian friend, I do agree with you, maybe from the context of perfectionism within the culture, traditionalism, anime, work culture, and so many other things. Japan is quite known and well known, not only within our continent Asia, but in rest of the world. But from the context of ancestor worship or the rituals or the festivals around it, I don't think that Japan is quite explored or well known. And that is why I kept this country in the category of unknown or maybe little unknown. And as I mentioned, that one by one we will start discussing the ideas, the rituals, the festivals around this ancestor worship practice. And within Japan, of course, this practice is deeply intertwined into the culture, so much so that there is one particular festival which is celebrated, even though it is a celebration of deceased, which is a sad event, but still there is one festival which is celebrated within the Japanese society or Japanese tradition and culture. And that festival we will explore in depth what is done, how it is done, why it is done in depth. And that festival is known as Obon. Of course, my Asian friend, from the context of ancestor worship, things and the rituals, the traditions might differ, but if we are thinking from the lens of Japanese society, then and if we are to talk about when exactly this practice originated, started, or whether or not was it always practiced within Japanese society, or it actually traveled to that region, then two theories come up. The first theory is that the practice of ancestor worship is actually intertwined into the religion Buddhism. And Buddhism is believed to originated in the old age India. From there, when the spread and rise of Buddhism started, it reached to China, and from China it reached to Japan. And that is why you might find so many similarities in the rituals of both Chinese ancestor worship and Japanese ancestor worship. But the second theory says is no, this practice was always indigenous to the land, because even within the religion Shintoism, which is originated in the region of Japan, these practices were also intertwined. Regardless of it, there are so many Japanese who are believed to be quite unreligious in their day-to-day existence, but when it comes to ancestor worship, that particular practice is so much so a part of that Japanese society that almost all of them do it, be it from the Buddhism context or be it from the Shintoism context. The population is divided in half and half, but it is almost close to 80 to 90% when it comes to doing the ancestor worship. So much so that even though Christianity entered the Japanese society almost 500 years ago, but could not grow their footprint or presence more than 1%, even in this day and age, simply because there are so many Japanese who identify themselves within that 1% as Christians, but still struggle with this identity crisis or existence crisis, where whether they are Christian or not, or else whether or not they should follow this practice of ancestor worship. Because ancestor worship is deeply rooted not only within the religion, but in the Japanese society traditions and the Japanese day-to-day existence, so much so that even though they abandoned their original religion, but they could not abandon this practice or the festival which is celebrated annually in Japan, and because of which they do struggle with existence, and even Christianity could not grow as rapidly as possible, despite the fact that they entered the society almost 500 years ago. And why it happened? Because Be it from the Japanese context or any other context, ancestor worship has got three pillars behind it. You either do it because your loved ones have passed on and you do love them truly and deeply, and you want to show reverence to them and give them utmost respect possible. This is one factor which is quite positive and I do like it. But there are two other factors. The second one would be, many of the Asian societies do tend to believe that there is one living world and there is one spirit world, and whosoever has passed on to that spirit world, they hold some power over us. If they are happy, they can give us advantages unimaginable, and if they are sad, they can wreck our lives unimaginably, right? This is second theory, and because of that, maybe some fear gets originated within ourselves, and that's why we do this practice to make sure that anyone who was our ancestor, of course they know us deeply because they at one point in time they held our DNA and we have same DNA, so they might be very close to us, and if they are angry they can hurt us in a number of ways possible, because that way stranger won't be able to do it. So this is one thing. And the second thing would be that the birth and death cycle is cyclical. This is third thing which I'm talking about, the concept behind ancestor worship. The existence in the world is cyclical. You are governed by your karmas, and until unless your karmas are not balanced, you will keep on taking birth, dying, and during that process you do need someone to help you out in the spirit world so that you can come back to earth and then fix your karmas and maybe one day achieve the nirvana. From the context of Shintoism or Buddhism, both follow these practices or beliefs. On these beliefs, these religions are formulated. Because of that, you, of course, once you have passed on, right, you need someone to offer you certain things which might help you in the afterlife. From that context itself, even though some people might not agree with the practice or don't want to do it, but they still do it because they are thinking from the point of view, if I am going to help my ancestors right now because they're helpless in the other world, maybe the good karma will get generated and even I will get help from my family members who are still living when I am into that another afterlife spirit world. From these three contexts, of course, the ancestor worship is followed, and same way Japan thinks, and Japan is in no way different, and that is why this particular culture is so intertwined, be it because of love, care and affection, or call it straight away fear, or maybe the religious belief that people do believe this is the utmost virtuous thing to do for your ancestors because they are closest to you. Maybe from the context or feeling of help and care, this thing is coming up. But at the end of the day, from these philosophies, even Japanese society functions when it comes to ancestor worship. So this is one thing which was quite, you can say, in my eyes, very beautiful, because at the end of the day, most of the people only care about the living ones, but any of the societies which are actually worried about what exactly good or bad is going to happen to their loved ones even when they have passed on is quite beautiful to me. But if at all, my Asian friend, you think that this thing is weird, you are right to in your own context. I'm not debating that. All I'm talking about is these are the philosophies or the motivation behind Japanese society following the ancestor worship during the festival Obon. Obon is believed to be celebrated for 3 days, but when I was deep diving into this culture, I got to know not just 3 days, there are prerequisite days, and those 3 days, and then the post Obon days. So in the prerequisite days, what Japanese people do is that they try and book the tickets in haste and move back to their ancestral homes. And this is one thing which is quite strange about Japanese society, because as we all know it, Japanese people are known for their hard work and long working hours. But despite that, the culture around the celebration of this festival is so deep rooted that people are actually allowed to have consecutive 3 days of leave during this festival or during this time of the month in Japan. So first thing which people do in the prerequisite days of Obon is to move back to their ancestral homes, and once they are back in their ancestral homes, they do the first prerequisite activity, which is the cleaning or else the beautification or setting up the altars. Altars can be Buddhist altars, which is Butsudan, or else Shinto altars known as Kamidana. But if I will talk about what are altars, then it is almost like a mini shrine within your homes, mini temples in your homes. If any of the South Asians are listening to me, then these are mini boxes with you can say hut-like roofs and mini boxes within which we keep religion-related idols and the tablets with the names engraved in it, and these names are the spirit names of the ancestors which have passed away and left this living world. So if any of the South Asians are listening to me, don't you think it sounds quite similar to us? Because we do have these things within our homes also. We do not keep our ancestors' tablet names in our temples or shrines, or else our Buddhas or Kamidana, but we do have these wooden shrines or mini temples within our homes too, where we do our daily prayers. The same way, even the East Asians and especially the Japanese people have it. So South Asians, you're getting the point. Are you able to connect? Are you able to connect the dots that even in this thing we are quite similar to each other? Not same, but quite similar to each other. Let me get back to the point. And this is the prerequisite which Japanese people do before the Obon starts. And when the Obon start, it goes around for 3 days. It is celebrated for 3 days, and on each day certain rituals and certain traditions are followed by the Japanese society. On the day one, which is known as Mukebi, on Mukebi, people light the bonfire and the lanterns for their ancestors who are coming back to living world from the afterlife. And what exactly they do and why exactly they do it, because the belief around it is that whenever an ancestor is coming back to the afterlife, to their ancestral home. Remember, in the prerequisite, everyone in the family came back to the ancestral home. They came back to the ancestral home so that as a family they can welcome back their passed on ancestor for few days and spend time with them, or at least share some memories about them when they were alive and living with them. So because of that, people do gather, and once they have gathered, the Japanese people light up the bonfire or lanterns so that they can guide the spirits of their loved ones back to their ancestral home. And the belief is, during this time, Japanese people have this superstition to not go near the ocean bodies or water bodies. Why? Because the belief is, from the afterlife, the ancestors move to the ocean, and from the ocean they are guided back with the help of bonfires and lanterns to their ancestral homes, so that they can be around or with their living family members for 3 days. And the first day is, of course, Mukebi. Apart from lighting the lanterns, there are certain things which are done, but the major thing which is done both in the Buddhist or else the Shintoism religion around this ancestor worship would be this common practice. And day 2 would be known as Hoyo. On the day of Hoyo, most of the Buddhist people either invite the Buddhist priest, or people who are following Shintoism invite their priest and perform certain rituals. And before performing those certain rituals, many of the family members would either clean the altars. Of course, that is a prerequisite. Clean the grave sites also, because some of the rituals are believed to be done either on the grave side or near the altars. So this clarification is clear. You can say cleaning is done. And the another thing which is quite prevalent and commonly done on the day 2nd of Hoyo would be to use a cucumber, one eggplant, and use certain sticks and create certain figurines. And these figurine would be the cucumber with these spokes inserted into it, and making it almost look like a creature would be. That cucumber is believed that it is a horse, and eggplant would be believed that it is a cow. And why they do it, why they create these figurines, because the yet another belief is that whenever the ancestors are coming back from afterlife to their ancestral homes, they should come on their horses so that they can quickly reach within their family members. And once they are going back to their afterlife, after once these Obon days are over, they should slowly go back to the afterlife, because of course the feeling of parting away from your loved ones, even though they have passed on to their another life, is quite painful. That is why cows are slow, so that is why these figurines are created near the altars and offered. And on the day of Hoyo, apart from creating these figurines, different things are also offered to the ancestors in front of those spirit named templates of the ancestors. They are offered with rice, red bean soup, and so many other Japanese traditional delicacies, and especially they are offered if they were the favorites while these ancestors were alive, and they are offered, and people do have a family lunch with each other so that they can have a good time with their ancestors and their living family members, and just pay respect and reverence to the ones who have passed on, and ask for the blessings in return, and have some time to just ponder upon the memories which they shared when this ancestor was alive. So on the second day, this is what is majorly done. And on the third day, which is known as okuribi, on the day of okuribi, again the bond dancing is performed on the Japanese folk songs, so that the ancestors can be entertained or else they can be respected. And the day of okuribi also, the lights, bonfires and lanterns are again lit, so that the ancestors can be shown the pathway to get back to their afterlife. So this is one elaborate process or rituals which are followed during the festival of Obon. So these are the things which are usually done during Obon. And now let me discuss in the next section how exactly it is a uniting factor for all of us Asians. My Asian friend, I am damn sure once I describe what exactly is done during Obon, you must be thinking how exactly it is relatable for us as Asians. See, if you're thinking that word by word everything will be relatable to you, then you're highly mistaken. Depending on the country you have taken birth in, within your country also, within the next family which is living right next to you, your rituals, your traditions or your beliefs will totally be different. All I'm trying to pinpoint is, when it comes to ancestor worship or the ideas or the rituals behind it, from the Japanese context, there are so many things which all of us do, not completely, but in some way, shape or form. Japanese rituals are actually, as I already mentioned, are quite similar to the Chinese rituals. But when it comes to Buddhism being the base of it, anyone who is a Buddhist, who is residing not only in the continent Asia but in rest of the world, would be doing this practice. So it doesn't matter if you are a Japanese or not, as long as you are Buddhist, since the practice of ancestor worship is already intertwined into the religion. So if you are following that religion, even though you are not Japanese or Asian for that matter, you are doing the same thing. So you are actually quite similar from the context of ancestor worship to not only Japanese but Asians who follow these rituals to the T. This is one thing. The another thing would be, if as I described what exactly is done during the prerequisite days of the Obon, the setting up of the altar, the cleaning up of the altar, or else the beautification of the altar. If any of the South Asians are listening to me, isn't this practice sounding quite similar to the practices which we do in our prerequisite days to any of our festivals which we celebrate, be it Diwali, be it Holi, be it Janmashtami, or any other festival? Even though you are not a person who follows Sanatana, even if you are a Buddhist, Jain or Christian or Muslim, whatever you believe in within India or South Asia for that matter, before our festivals are arriving, aren't we all doing the same thing of setting up our own religion related altars, setting up the situation, preparing for the rituals? So in that sense also, we are quite similar to each other as Asians. And from the lens of Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, and from the lens of Hinduism also, our practice around ancestor worship is also quite closer to the ancestor worship or rituals of Japanese people also, because within our culture or our religion, we too do the ancestor worship, not only in India, in Nepal, in Sri Lanka. These religions are quite somewhere or the other prevalent within these countries. We too do the ancestor worship, and even our prerequisite days to our ancestor worship festivals also seem like this, which is cleaning up the altar, preparing for that festival of deceased people, or else the rituals of deceased people. And we too do set up the altars and clean up, or maybe start preparing to perform that practices. From that context also, we are quite close and similar to each other. But if I were to relate any of the East Asian practices, then of course these two religions, if not Shintoism, at least Buddhism is, and along with that the practice of Confucianism is quite well known and spread across entire East Asia and Southeast Asia. Our continent Asia is actually divided into 5 parts. It is almost two fifth of that part. So the East Asia and Southeast Asia are also quite similar to each other in the practice of ancestor worship, not just in the philosophies and idea behind ancestor worship, but even the rituals also. The name of festival might change, some rituals might be here and there, but at the end of the day, it is quite similar, right? So we have till now connected South Asia, Southeast Asia, and South Asia, right? All the South is covered. Now let's talk about the North and the West Asia. There, I know ancestor worship was prevalent few years ago, before the origination of any of the monotheistic religions happened. But in the current context, if we will talk about, the practice of ancestor worship is quite, you can say, not similar to whatever which is followed in South Asia, Southeast Asia, or East Asia. Not similar, but at the end of the day, even North Asians and the West Asians are doing the practice of ancestor worship, maybe in a different way. Maybe they have another day within their region, within their culture or tradition or religion, where they do pay the respect and reverence to their ancestors, and maybe they do the ancestor worship of and that ancestor worship is actually not the worship to the ancestor or with the ancestor. It's ancestor worship, or else you can say the prayer is being offered for the betterment of the ancestor. As I already mentioned in my previous video itself, that even these regions, despite the fact that they are right now following any of the monotheistic religion, even they are doing it, but the form is changed, the days have changed, the names of the days have changed, but it is quite relatable and integrating. So that is why I thought I should mention and discuss. And one by one, we are exploring the countries which are following this practice called ancestor worship, and how the practices can be linked to our own Asian countries' practices around the ancestor worship. And if you're not convinced, please do let me know. I will try to convince you even further. And if you have a great point, then maybe I might drop this topic. But I think this is one factor from which and through which we can explore all of the Asian countries one by one, which is actually a big part of our culture as Asians, and is quite uniting and integrating for all of the Asians. We will come back with another country, another Asian country from this particular context. But until that happens, I will say goodbye to you and have a nice day, my Asian friend. Bye.